What's going on, all you wild HBO Max fans out there? Your two favorite Jacob Elordi enthusiasts are out here tonight, and we are back, and we're going to talk about the final season of the hit HBO series from Uncle Sam Levinson. You know, everybody's been talking about this show, ever since it premiered back in what I think it was, 2019 maybe. A lot of time's gone by, more people have gotten a chance to see the work on this series and appreciate it. And they Sam Levinson really created something unique here with this series, and it's all wrapping up. And this final season, season three, we have a time change going on here, and we're gonna meet up with these characters a few years after high school. So we are getting into our review of the final season of Euphoria.
Euphoria. That's right. These old teenagers are back at it tonight. Euphoria, a show on one of our favorite networks. Everybody was talking about this. This came out in 2019. It survived, the pandemic with COVID happening, the wildfires in California. So it's been what, 7 years for three seasons, and this is the final season, the final chapter of Sam Levinson's, creation, and really the show that really put us these a few actors in the spotlight. Of course, I'm talking about Zendaya, Jacob Elordi, Sydney Sweeney are in everything now. They're like Hollywood
hmm
A-listers, and this is where people started paying attention as these, group of teenagers in Southern California dealing with problems, mental health, drugs, and everything that's thrown at teenagers, technology and all that kind
hmm
of stuff. And with the last season, what happened there, what happened to the characters after high school, season three, fast forward to like 5 years to where these characters are at, and in particular Rue behind us, Zendaya, and the whole tone of the season is completely different. And what made the first two seasons great, it just felt like a different show, felt like a Wild West, Breaking Bad kind of
hmm
season, and some unusual choices.
Yeah, it was weird. You could tell Sam Levinson probably had something else in mind, and he'd done several interviews saying that when Angus passed away, unfortunately, that it kind of changed everything. He was more of the focus, I think, of the final season, and yeah, he kind of had to rewrite a lot of things for that. Angus Cloud dying, and between the making of this film and the last season. Following all these characters, yeah, how do you move them forward? What would they be doing? Well, we see Rue here as a kind of like a drug runner in that first episode of season three. She's has this, driving across the desert basically with a bunch of drugs and has to, make it over the wall. They have this big ramp that she attempts to drive the vehicle over and kind of gets stuck there like a seesaw there, with the Jeep going back and forth. And what happens after that, meeting all these interesting characters who she comes in contact with, specifically this owner, this big, boss, basically the owner of the strip club, um, played by the actor who we remember back from Lost, who played Mr. Echo back in Lost here, featuring this season as like the big villain here. A lot of different stories going on here all at once. Obviously, Euphoria, there's a lot of characters, and they make sure to give everybody their time to shine. We see Jacob Elordi's character and Sydney Sweeney's characters, marrying. They have a wild, wedding episode, which is one of the standouts of this season. Seeing those two get together and the chaos that ensues. And as with Euphoria, one thing that they were able to actually keep here in season three that did feel like the earlier seasons was just the chaos and the unpredictability, the rawness. That's what I enjoyed about season three. Very different where these characters are at, but that rawness is still there. That made those early seasons really work.
Yeah, definitely. And you definitely feel the absence of a few characters in
hmm
this season, like you're saying, Playboy himself, Angus Cloud. My favorite character the first two seasons. I really thought he carried a lot of the show, and you feel it this season. It's lacking, kind of
Yeah.
lifeless. A lot of episodes, especially early on.
Yeah,
Other characters that were in the other first two seasons weren't in this. One of my favorite characters, Jules Hunter Schafer, didn't have much to do this season.
barely.
Kind of the
Yeah.
background, having an affair with this married man
Yeah,
and
didn't go anywhere.
artist, and that was really disappointing. Even Maude Apatow that plays Lexi, she was like involved with the movie industry, but she didn't really have much to do either. But the
Yeah.
bigger characters, I guess,
Yeah.
Nate and Cassie, Elordi and Sydney Sweeney getting married, and with that starts with Nate bad business decisions, which really sets up the rest of the season of the bad guys and stuff like that. And really
Yeah.
one of the most gruesome death scenes I've seen without giving too much away,
Yeah.
with one of the main characters here. I'm like, I totally did not see that coming.
Yeah.
It was brutal, brutal.
Very.
One of the standout, episodes towards the end, but just a lot of
Yeah.
peculiar choices they did with these
Hmm.
characters. Sydney Sweeney's OnlyFans was weird. There's just a lot of like torture porn and like sick fantasies of
Yeah.
Levinson here, and just didn't really flow. It was just kind of all over the place, and just didn't have that heart and that atmosphere that made
Right.
the first two seasons great. I thought this season was
Yeah.
lackluster pretty much across the board. A few decent episodes and just a lot of questionable choices having to do with Rue and
Hmm.
her future, what she's doing with the drug, being a drug mule, dealing with Alamo, right? The big
Yeah.
bad guy this season. He's the owner of all these strip clubs. These other characters that are like Nazis, like just like a lot of
Hmm.
stuff going on, but just
Yeah.
felt lifeless at the same time, and just stuff we've seen before, and pretty
Yeah.
unimpressed by that.
Yeah. I agree with you. You mentioned heart and soul, where it felt like we're missing, just that lack of connectivity that you felt with the first couple seasons. Like, you were impacted a lot more with the choices because they were kind of, you could see how that could happen. This one's just kind of you have to stretch your believability here with the certain choices that they make with the story here. Just doesn't flow as well. But the climax and how things wrap up, I thought was the best
Yeah,
part of it, kind of wrapping things up and tying everything together. Tributes to, those that were lost on the show, since it began to now. I liked how they acknowledged Angus Cloud in the show, and you could see how much it affected everybody. It was kind of like a big hole. And I think, that was a big reason why this just didn't work as well as the earlier seasons. But Coleman Domingo here playing Ali, really loved what happened at the end. I thought that was awesome, awesome way for that character to kind of, realize his whole arc. I like seeing his flashback scenes of showing his character and how he first got hooked on drugs and how it tore his life up and how he's helping Rue in the present time. Their scenes together were some of the best, of this season for sure. And, Zendaya here, terrific as always. It was just the writing this year was just off for her character. But, at the end there, like her last episodes were definitely great performance from her. I liked what they did, like the choice they made with her character. It kind of fit with the way things were going with that character. And yeah, still remember the final scene there, which was memorable. Um, yeah, like you mentioned, there's a lot of weird choices here. Like the opening up of the episode with Sydney Sweeney, kind of like the Godzilla opening, and then her being like the giant, like 50-foot woman going downtown into the city, and like the breasts come out and press up against the windows, and yeah, just like weird choices like that. Like I didn't understand where this was coming from, but they kind of went cinematic this year. I guess that's what Sam Levinson had on his mind. Sharon Stone, playing the big agent or whatever she was,
yeah,
getting Sydney Sweeney's character involved there. So yeah, just I don't know, it was just kind of all over the place, and they had to change. And you know, was it great? No. Was it terrible? No. It was just somewhere in the middle for me, really. They should have just ended it after two. Too much time's passed. These characters, Zendaya, Jacob Elordi, we see them in all these movies and shows no more. They don't have that, unknown factor anymore that they had in the first couple seasons that really made those work. And it's just a different show. So it just changed everything. So with all that being said, Euphoria as a whole, definitely needs to be respected. Definitely, especially the first season, especially just like groundbreaking TV, something you never seen before that captured, the generations, coming up and how they have to deal with all this stuff and the drugs that are out there. They really captured that. Towards the third season, it just goes off the rails with that, just kind of loses that. But still have to respect what Sam Levinson created here. He had to deal with Angus Cloud dying, which was a major thing. So, with that being said, I'm going to give season three of Euphoria. If I'm being honest, I'm probably going to give Euphoria season three a 2.5 out of five Jacob Elordi hair pieces.
Yeah. There's a character that came to mind, Maddie. I didn't like Maddie in the first two seasons, but I thought she carried this season.
Yeah, she was
I thought
good.
she was really great. And Coleman Domingo carried the last half of the season for sure. That whole
Right.
final episode, the whole camera on him, how emotional it was, pulled on a lot of different emotions for me and just thought it was incredible. This guy, we
Yeah.
just talked about Disclosure Day, Michael, he's been in everything. He's
Yeah.
popping up in basically everything these days and well deserved. He's an incredible
Mhm.
actor. And without him, I probably would have, if he wasn't in this, I would give this a lower score. But just for
Mhm.
his character alone and the rest of the stuff I talked about, I would give
Mhm.
the final season of Euphoria, I'd give it a 3 out of 5. Zendaya hair pieces. But I was with you. The first two were incredible. Something I've
Mhm.
never seen. Everybody was talking about it. It will go down as one of the better HBO shows 20 years from
Right.
now. Kids then will be
Yeah.
watching this and like, whoa, generation was different and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Just the way it was filmed, very unique.
Yeah, very much so. And also, it was on the top of my mind there with Angus Cloud, Eric Dane, losing
Yeah.
him too. That's got to be rough, just like on everybody. So it's going to change everything, having to deal with his ALS and him passing away too. But I liked that they gave him, his character, his goodbye episode too during the wedding there, seeing him there. He didn't have much to do, but he got to talk to Nate there and that character. So another sad loss for the show there. I did like Alamo. I thought
Yeah.
Alamo was a pretty good villain. Yeah, he was good. Liked his character. He was good at being a creep for sure. And that Nate scene, like you talked about, the death
Jeez.
scene. Wow. Yeah, even for us, we're used to horror and everything. That one definitely freaked me out. Just the thought of being buried alive and then add on a whole nother level to it with what happened. Yeah, that was crazy.
I want to hear
Yeah.
from all you wild HBO enthusiasts out there. What did you like about the new season, the final season of Euphoria? What didn't you like about it? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, check out these wild Zendaya impersonators on Facebook, X, and Instagram, and our website, Cinephellas.com, for latest, greatest TV, movie news and reviews.
Thank you guys so much for watching our review of the final season of Euphoria. And until the next HBO Max show.
And I'm Hunter Schaefer signing out until the next TV review. Cheese!
Cheers.